Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Today, we have a great guest for you. Our friend Dave Delaney is the founder and CEO of Future Forth Corporate Communication and Leadership Training. He's a podcast host and producer of an amazing podcast called ADHD Why Squirrels. He's a keynote speaker who leaves audiences enlightened with new ideas, empowered to apply what they've learned, and entertained with stories and humor. I'm looking forward to hearing Dave speak. I know we're going to get a chance to share a stage here in the fall. He's a why squirrel, hyper-focused on your success, and he's also an ADHD advocate. He is recognized for his really engaging personality. If you haven't listened to his podcast, you'll totally see that there. He's received high praise for his ability to connect with people and inspire action. He is a natural communicator, passionate about fostering meaningful relationships and helping others reach their full potential. He brings humor, positivity, and strategic insight. He empowers professionals to communicate with confidence, lead with impact, and drive success. So without further ado, let me introduce our friend and yours, Dave Delaney. How are you, Dave?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you on because this is a topic that I am really leaning into. You and I met through our mutual friend, Holly White, who is a cognitive psychologist. She has studied this stuff. I love how you are, and I like that your podcast focuses on late diagnosed ADHD adults. And that's an area that I guess I would consider myself in that category. I probably knew this all my life, but now I kind of know it. And one of the things you do is you help people lean into it and see the strengths of that diagnosis. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, I think it would be a great way to start, is just kind of tell us about your late diagnosis and what caused you to just really learn more and, of course, start a podcast about it.
Yeah, good questions. Well, the shorter version of the story of being diagnosed was I was in a mastermind with a couple of entrepreneurs, fellow entrepreneurs, and one I knew very well and the other I didn't know very well. And the guy that I didn't know very well, after several months of working together, reached out to me and sent me a text and said, "Dave, do you have ADHD?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "I think you do." and of course, my wife had said it, many times over the years as a teacher. She spotted it, but it wasn't until then and he said, "You really should go see your doctor." And so I did, and subsequently got a diagnosis and then treatment as well. So that's kind of the quick version of my diagnosis. As far as the podcast, I started. So, I've always been a big proponent of living transparently, authentically, and all the words, cliches aside these days.
Right.
But really, I'm sort of a product. Well, I'm a product of Web 2.0, of blogging and social media before it became scary and evil, and the algorithms all took over. And so, I started podcasting in 2005. My first podcast was back in October 2005. So now almost 20 years. And so straight away, I'm like, well, okay, I have ADHD. Now I got to learn about it. And so I started 𝗟𝗏squirrels.com as a place to share what I was learning. And then the podcast as well to speak with subject matter experts and high achievers with ADHD to kind of share their stories and the lessons I'm learning along the way as well. So that was really the sort of the story of how Why Squirrels came to be. Again, there's a lot of content out there for, ADHD parents or ADHD families. And obviously, as I've learned, and I've learned a ton, although I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on the internet, to be clear. So, but I've learned a ton, and I wanted to share what I was learning with everybody. And so I created this show for late diagnosed adults with ADHD like myself. I was going to say that caveat before is, if you have ADHD then you probably, and you have children, one of them probably has ADHD too. There's a high likeliness of the heritability aspect of it. So, but anyway, that's my story.
So no, and I love that. Like I said, and you talk about it cliches, but you know what? They're not cliches. They're important things. The fact of being transparent is so important. In the world of business, I like working with people who are transparent. I want to know who you are, and that's why I use the assessment that you and I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me know people, and then when we go over their results and they say things like you did, like, "Yep, that's me. Well, then it helps me understand, okay, what's important to Dave. And for those of you, hey, by the way, audience, a lot of our audience are coaches who use that same assessment. So a lot of our followers are why coaches. So Dave's why is trust, his how is clarify, and his what is contribute. So as we were going over his results, we were talking about, so Dave, for you, trust is very important. It's something you value, being dependable. And then how you achieve trust is by giving people clarity. And so, and you just talked about it, being transparent. You help people be clear. You know where you stand with Dave, and he wants to know where you stand, and he asks great questions. If you haven't seen his podcast, talk about a masterclass and how to ask great questions. And you would expect that from someone with the how of clarify, and is what is contribute. Dave wants to make a difference. And again, just even in your introduction, we're seeing that not only did you go out and learn a lot about ADHD, you started sharing it with the world. And you said, what's the best way to share it? Well, you did some blogs, you started 𝗏𝗏𝗱𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 everything, you kind of took us on your learning journey with you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like I want to share, like, for example, I created this free like a guide called Now What, which basically shares like a lot of the things that I've learned now
Right.
that now that you've been diagnosed with ADHD, now what are you going to do? And so I created like that as a, and that's a free download at 𝗟𝗚squirrels.com. So if people want to grab it, they can. But yeah, just openly sharing stuff and trying to inspire people. And yeah, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, one of the things that I think you have an assessment on there, right? At 𝗟𝗚squirrels.com. So you can kind of see for yourself, hey, and as you said, you're the second person this week I've met who is not a doctor, doesn't have an advanced degree in what you do, but you have a natural curiosity and you've learned as much as you can. And you're sharing so many great tools with your audience, with your readers, and with the people that you come in contact with. It really, and I was talking with my COO this morning about, what, you don't need an advanced degree and you don't need to go to college to be really knowledgeable about anything. All the information's out there, right? So we just need to go out and find it, and you curate it and you put it in a place where people can go to get that clarity. So kudos and thank you for that.
Thanks. Yeah. And I'm very careful too about fact checking and about just because there is a lot of misinformation about ADHD online and, especially on social media. So yeah, it's important. It's important to do my best in vetting the information. And, from time to time, a guest may say something and I'm like, I haven't heard that before. And I might push back a little bit, not to be a contrarian or anything, but again, I mean, my goal is to share correct information for sure. And where I might make a mistake, I do my best to fix it pretty quickly as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, tell us about, for you, you're a speaker. And one of the things, how we came together is Dr. Holly White, a good friend of both of ours, brought us together. She said, Dan, you got to talk to Dave, have him on the podcast. And I'm so glad she made that connection. We will be, we're trying to put together an event. By the way, we'll tell you guys all about it. You'll hear about it here. Dave is one of the few that hadn't been on the podcast already, but we're putting a neurodivergent leaders global conference together in July. And we're inviting you, if you're a leader out there and you've been told, hey, why do you always go against the grain? That's one thing. But there's also the positive. How do you come up with all these great ideas, which neurodivergent thinkers do, because we look at things differently than the rest of the world. I loved your interview that I was just listening with Tamara. Is it Rosier?
Yeah. I always mess up her name too. It's Rosier. Yeah.
Rosier. Yeah.
So she wrote the book, Your Brain's Not Broken.
And what a great book, right? And that's, and Holly
awesome.
talks about the fact that, hey, she says ADHD is neither a deficit nor a disorder. She says, hey, it's a gift, and she treats it that way. But what we want to do at that conference, and what, Dave, I think what you're doing is helping people see the gift that ADHD is. What are some of the positives that come from having a neurodivergent mind and looking at things from a different perspective? And inviting, and I think you said it, you invite leaders, you invite people who have been late diagnosed to come into your space and learn, hey, what are the advantages? Yes, there's going to be disadvantages that we come with, like forgetting to pick kids up at school, or losing our car keys, literally listening to someone saying, yes, I'll go do it, and then forgetting a minute later, what did I say I was going to do, right? So those are some of the disadvantages, but that creativity that blossoms out of us is different. What's one of the gifts that you see in people that have been late diagnosed with ADHD? What because you work with leaders and high achievers. So what are they really good at? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's obviously there's good stuff like, another cliche, but like thinking outside the box, right? Of approaching things in a different way. I think it's a benefit to have the ability to become hyper-focused when you are doing the work that you love the most. The creative work it's often kind of creative stuff. Not necessarily though. I mean, you might love crunching numbers, and so spending time in a spreadsheet can be your place for hyper-focus. So in a sense, I mean, that is kind of a gift in a way. The challenges come when you get distracted while doing that about something else of interest, and suddenly you're hyper focused on the wrong thing, and suddenly the time has just flown by, and you're like, oh crap, I got to get back to whatever the project was. So I would say the ability to hyper focus on creative work is certainly a benefit, and it's something that a lot of people strive for. They're trying to get in the flow, as they say, and perhaps for others it's more challenging, but I think with wise squirrels or ADHDers, I think it's a lot easier. But again, it's just making sure that you're focusing on the right thing.
So you just mentioned it, which is really cool. I want to make sure we talk about that. Why wise squirrels? You said with wise squirrels. So what's it mean to be a wise squirrel?
Yeah, so it took me a while to think of the name. I kept thinking of squirrel because of the Doug the dog from the movie Up. The ADHD distracted meme with Doug, when he's distracted by the squirrel and he goes, squirrel. Right. So there's that meme, but I didn't want to just call it squirrel or squirrels or distracted squirrels or something, because I thought that was a little belittling. And what I realized is that certainly with undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, obviously, we've all gotten to some point in our lives, and there are successes, some smaller, some bigger, but we've been able to get to where we are. We're still existing. We're still alive. We're still doing what we do. So we've reached these levels of success. And despite our ADHD, despite even knowing we have ADHD. And so with those experiences comes wisdom. And so that's why I call it wise squirrels. So it's we might be squirrely at times, but we're also wise from the wisdom that we've gained through developing coping mechanisms unknowingly to get to where we are today.
And it's the wisdom of experience, right? I was listening to you talking to Tamara, and one of the stories that came up, and we won't repeat that same story, but it was little Dave putting a paper clip into an electrical outlet in elementary school and getting in some trouble.
Yeah.
When if you were to look back, what's the first time that you remember saying, hey, you know what, I'm different, and how has that shaped who you became? Because you're obviously very successful. You're doing keynote speaking, you're helping teams achieve better communication, and you're doing that not despite of, but because of your diagnosis. You're able to, as you said, hyper focus on the things that really matter to you and get them done on that creative work.
Yeah.
When's the first time you remember saying to yourself, I wonder why I did that? Nobody else does, but I keep getting in trouble for that, but it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, even public speaking, you know, and so I studied improv at Second City in Toronto, and have performed a lot of improv and actually teach improv as well. It's part of some of the communication strategy work that I do and presentation skills training that I do for clients. But I've always loved being on stages in front of audiences, delivering keynote presentations, and even smaller, more intimate workshops for, you know, my clients. And it took me, like, once I've learned about the ADHD component of why I do what I do. Again, this isn't to say that like every person with ADHD would love to stand on stages doing what I do. Certainly not. But because I love doing that, I get a massive rush of dopamine from the audience, right? So when the audience is responding, they're laughing, because I'm always high energy and a lot of fun on stage. So when the audience is laughing, nodding their heads in agreement, coming to talk to me afterwards, that gives me this huge rush of dopamine. And as you know, ADHDers know, we're lacking in the dopamine department, and we crave it, and we're trying to find it however we can. And unfortunately, that could be through addiction and excessiveness in some negative ways. But if you channel it in a positive way, you know, it can really pay off. And so that's one of those things that I've kind of looking at my life now through the lens of ADHD and understanding, oh, that explains why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you know what, we crave it. It's so funny you say that, because you know, in my previous life, I was a national sales director at a Fortune 100 company. You get that national sales meeting once a year where you're on stage and it's you and everybody's watching you, and you're delivering the good news if you had a great year, and you're delivering not so good news. Thankfully, I always got to deliver good news. We hit quota all the time, but that was such a rush. And like you said, we crave that, the nodding of the heads, or people holding up their phone to take a picture of our slide, or or you know, when hands go up, or like you said, that feeds. But that makes all the work that you have to do beforehand worth it, right? Because you know that reward is coming. Great example. So were you a theater kid? Did you, because you've done Second City you trained with, right?
Yeah.
So you've trained with a pretty cool organization to learn improv. How did did you have a background in performance? Did you do that as a kid, or is this something that came to you later in life?
No, I've always had a love for theater and for acting and things. And I've done some background work in movies when I lived in Toronto, where I'm from originally, Hollywood North. So, you know, there was often opportunities to get involved with films and TV shows and things. And I studied radio and television broadcasting before going back to school for business and marketing. But so I've always been a ham. Like, you know, I've always been funny and doing practical jokes. And, you know, I used to have cassettes of crank calls when I was a kid and things. And oftentimes would be kind of, you know, have my friends laughing their heads off. So I just never knew, I never really understood how to channel it. You know, the improv certainly did really help with that. And I've dabbled with some stand-up comedy that I first did a couple of years ago before I was diagnosed for the first time. So yeah, I've always loved performance. And as a speaker, I mean, it's great. I love it.
And one of the things we're going to talk about is you in your LinkedIn profile, you're a communication strategist. So how do that sounds like a very organized strategy, right? Coming up with strategy.
Yeah.
How do you channel all the you have a tremendous breadth of experience. How do you channel all of that to help teams build communication is one of your missions. What's the keys? What makes Dave Delaney different than everyone else that comes in and is going to help you build communication strategies?
Well, yeah, what I do, I mean, what I do with my coaching clients as well is I'm trying to get down to the bottom of what their personal strengths are. And I developed a presentation training I do called the Root Down, and that's at 𝗚𝗚squirrels too. And it's 3 sections. It's to know yourself, respect yourself, and connect yourself. So know, like self-knowledge, understanding yourself, like your great assessment. The second part is respecting yourself, and that includes self-acceptance, self-love. And then the third part is about connecting yourself, and that's about putting an end to this loneliness epidemic of finding your people and being around more people, and finding community and so forth.
Right.
And I say all that because, with self-knowledge, and that's the first part. I mean, you have to understand your own strengths. And so what I did, I practice what I preach, and I put myself through this program that I developed called the Root Down. And it was many years of different personality assessments, different strengths finders and all that stuff, and reflection and meditation and journaling and all that. And I realized that everything I'm good at lives under this umbrella of communication, whether it's podcasting, interviewing people, being on camera, standing, on stages, writing, coaching. It all fits under this communications hat. And I have many years of marketing and promotions and publicity experience and branding. So I know how to do this stuff. And I love the challenge of meeting with new clients, whether they're a coaching client or a company, to pull from my knowledge in order to help them achieve some facet of communication. And that might be partly better understanding yourself and your strengths for your own career, and then being able to communicate what you do in order to, change careers, change jobs, or get a job if you're younger or newer at work. So it's for me, it's all about communication, and the strategy piece comes when I'm working with people to figure out exactly what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and then working on a program to take them through that to get where they want to go.
So then, this is great. I love learning more about, because I always ask, who is your ideal client? Who is the client that, when you see them, you're like, oh, I can. Number one, you're obviously you're a contributor. So you where you say to yourself, I know I can help them. I hope that we connect so we can, so that I can help them. So what kind of clients do you just absolutely look forward to working with?
Yeah, it varies and it depends, right? And it's a tough one to answer because communication, like every organization can improve their communication.
Sure.
Every person can improve their communication skills. I'm not perfect at communication. Just ask my wife, but I'm doing my best to improve, right? And sharing what I learned. So it's a tough one to answer because it, first of all, depends on what the actual engagement looks like. So if it's a coaching engagement, and I offer like a free coaching call at 𝗚𝗚squirrels, there's a waiting list, but I do have that there if people are interested. So if it's a one-on-one coaching session, then it's about helping someone usually my age or our age, like mid-career, middle-aged, or even older, looking for the next thing, making a career change, or growing a small business, something new perhaps. Whether it's teaching, I was a speaker for Google for nearly 6 years. And so Google sent me across the country in Canada representing them and speaking. And I taught thousands of people how to use Google products and services. And I'm a bit of a nerd. So there is that tech side to me. And so for that, it was representing, a great brand, and being out there and speaking to the media and teaching people. And I love helping, teaching, and inspiring people. So So it's a hard one to answer. But Future Fourth is my business. And if you go there, you can kind of choose your own adventure of whether you're looking for a keynote speaker, somebody facilitate a workshop, or like a coaching engagement. And DaveDelaney.me, the link on the screen will take someone wherever you can choose from there too. I have too many domains because I have ADHD. That's what I say.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I think we all do, right? We were just talking, my COO and I have Tuesdays we get together and we do creation time. And we're usually together for 4 hours. And that's the time when, throughout the week, projects come up, ideas come up, and we say, okay, save it for Tuesday and let's talk about it. Well, this last Tuesday, I remember we did not get a lot done because I kept going on to different things and moving around. But one of the things that you talk about that I think is really important, and Holly talks about it in that we don't just, there's not a deficit in how we learn. We just learn differently, right? We're not going to be the types that sit in class and take meticulous notes and listen. But if you let us experience and let us do our own research, my daughter, who is not diagnosed, she says, Dad, you'd be amazed at what I can do when you let me do things my own way. And when we're able to give kids that freedom to just, hey, how would you approach it? And then let them do it. They often surprise us. And I think it's not even just kids. I think our employees on teams, when we allow people the freedom to do it the way they think is the best way to do it, they often come up with ways that are even better than what we would do, right?
Well, that fits into like the stories of, the statistics around productivity improving with either a hybrid or a remote team, right? Where if you're working from home or remotely wherever, statistically speaking, you tend to get more work done. Now there's a downside to that too, which, gets into that loneliness factor. Because if you're sitting staring at a webcam all day, that can be a little lonely. And there's different, I have thoughts about that, but, and as far as schools go and things, my kids went to a Montessori school for the first 5 years of earlier, a little longer than that. And Montessori, I loved the idea of Montessori programs because it's very hands-on. It's less sitting in rows and desks like we've been doing since the beginning of education, at least at least here anyway. And so I've always really found the Montessori system to be beneficial. I wish I'd had that.
Yeah, no, my daughter went through Montessori preschool, kinder, and then she's now at a classical school where it's very focused on experiential learning, and they do, they have things like they have 4 recesses a day. So they really get these kids moving because we're not built to sit in desks, especially as kids, all day long, taking notes and just paying attention to an adult who is talking to us like Charlie Brown, right? Even your neurotypical people don't like that after a while.
No, they don't like it either. Yeah. You said the Charlie Brown thing. I don't know if you saw the meme going around, but, Bueller, like everybody mentions Bueller as the most boring teacher ever. And if you actually, that clip has been going around, I'm not going political, trust me, but as a Canadian, I do have opinions. And that whole bit is actually him teaching a lesson. And there is a lesson in that clip if you watch the whole thing. Right. And the lesson that he's teaching is the most boring topic, I guess the writers of the film of Ferris Bueller's chose, and that's tariffs.
Yes.
And he's explaining how tariffs, how they work and why they're a bad idea. And
oh my goodness. Now you're going to have me Googling that clip now.
You got to look up the clip because you'll be like, oh man, like they were trying to warn us in Ferris Bueller's.
In 1985, I think.
In 1985, yeah. But all we remember is Bueller, which was hilarious. But
that's a great, and that's the other thing, have you noticed that as a neurodivergent thinker, as an ADHDer, we notice things that other people don't, right? You focused on something, everybody's focused on the Bueller, you focused, hey, what was the lesson he was teaching? And you pick that up and you bring it out and everybody's like, it's like those Rorschach images, right? Everybody, nobody sees what you see. And then you're like, And then once they see it, they can't not see it.
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic. So what is the problem that you solve, Dave, when you come in and work? What is the problem you help people solve? I like asking that question because it's always unique and different. And so I'd love to hear what is the problem that you are able to see and help diagnose and fix?
It depends on who the person is, but I help solve the problem of misguided or poor communication, so that you can actually communicate with clarity. You can communicate to reach the goals that you're trying to reach. And so if that means communicating about who you are and why you're great for a specific job, I'm good with that. If you're trying to communicate to your internal team, I've done crisis management, multi-generational workshops as well, how to communicate internally with people. My book is called New Business Networking, and I wrote this book all about networking in person and online. So I have chapters on LinkedIn and Facebook, but then and podcasting and all that, but then also chapters on organizing your own events or how to network at conferences or trade shows. And again, that gets into the problem of, well, let's say I'm sponsoring a conference and I've sent my team. I want to better see a return on my investment because it's not cheap. And so at Future Fourth, I developed something called 10X conference coaching to help with that problem. So again, for me, it's really getting down to, what the problem is that my clients or potential clients are struggling with. And once I find out what their problem is, I can either help them or I can't. And I'm honest enough to say when I can't. And if I can't, I probably know somebody who can. And I'll make that introduction, which gets back to the networking piece, which is planting seeds and providing value to the people in your network.
And it goes to your why of trust. And you're not going to try to help somebody that you can't help, because then that would not be that wouldn't be honest. That would definitely erode trust. And you're somebody I can tell we've had a couple of conversations, and just hearing you talk today, how important trust is, and building, having credibility. And help, and at the end of the day, you want to help people. And if you can't help them, you're going to make sure you find somebody that can. And you mentioned clarity. It's amazing. As I was listening to your answers, clarity is so important. Dave, we're going to have you back, because
I'd love to be back.
And one of the things I think you're convincing me. I've been thinking of going with a longer format for the shows. I think I'm convinced that from now on, I'm going to have a longer format. But where can people reach you? I know we've got 𝗚squirrels.com, DaveDelaney.me is where they can find all of your stuff. 𝗚squirrels.com is where that free ADHD assessment is.
Yep.
What's the best way to reach out to you? I know you have a free coaching session and you've got a waiting list. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is to reach out through any of the websites. They all have a contact form. So just, if you drop by futurefourth.com or DaveDelaney.me, or you can go to 𝗚squirrels. And I do encourage people to check out the podcast. It's definitely a labor of love. And the assessments there, the now what, free download and free coaching is there as well.
So this is fabulous. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so glad we had you on. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Why not, indeed. Thank you so much for being on, guys. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to leave your comments, and share this podcast with as many people as you can. We want Dave Delaney to be able to help as many of you that might be having communication issues and want somebody creative to come in and help you guys have a great experience. I know he's a great keynote speaker. He's a great coach. So, Dave, we're going to have you back. Thank you so much for being on. Until next time, keep on leading different.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different? When you do the things that everyone else does, you get the same results as everyone else gets. Let's do things a little different. Let's lead different. And ask yourself this: why not?